I'm Gloria Treaster. For those of you who don't know me, I am the founder and CEO at Wellness Evolution. We have a great team of practitioners here. Tonight you're going to meet four actually. Carol Murphy's here as well. Dr. Mahmoud Kar is our medical director, and he's going to be talking to you about hormones and from a medical perspective, and then also a bit of an integrative perspective, because we have an integrative approach here at Wellness Evolution. We have Dr. Kar, who's a medical doctor, and Dr. Meg Perry, who is a naturopathic doctor, and Lee Joy Ellis is also a naturopath. And Molly Enders is a acupuncturist who's also going to talk to you about how acupuncture can help in Chinese herbs. I also did mention Meg is going to be talking about a natural perspective to hormones. If you haven't met these folks, afterwards we'll have a little bit of time to move around and talk, and feel free to ask questions. We'll do some questions afterwards. And also Carol Murphy, you can kind of wave. Carol is one of our practitioners. She's a very talented lady. She's formerly a nurse, and she's a licensed massage therapist and Reiki master and reflexologist and aromatherapist. And I could go on and on and on. And her specialty really is working with people on stress-related issues and grief and what other kinds of things, Carol?
Put cats with the grave in my mouth. I like working with the emotions and the mental body. That's wonderful.
So we're very lucky to have all of these talented people. And so we're recording this. If any of you missed something and you want to hear it again, we'll be happy to send you a link to the recording. And so without further ado, Dr. Mahmoud Kar.
Thank you. So she did a glowing introduction. I usually don't have to, but what we try to do here, and the reason I try to introduce myself as the MD, is we do try to provide an integrative approach. And my role usually as medical director is just another piece of the pie, really. So when it comes to things like this, when it comes to bioidentical hormones, for example, one of the things we want to emphasize here today is that the talk may seem like that is really what we are trying to say is the ultimate solution. But it's not. And in one of my slides you're going to see I actually use the word less is more. And that's one of the reasons, that's one of the things we pride ourselves in, and one of the reasons we have Dr. Perry is going to start speaking after me, and then Molly, to show other approaches. What I always tell people, because we always do get this question, what do you mean by an integrative approach? How is that different than seeing any physician who would, for example, prescribe bioidentical hormones or prescriptions? And the way I like to explain it is what we do here starts perhaps as any other physician visit. You would come in, you get a history and physical, you'd fill out all those forms that nobody likes to fill out and everybody gets irritated with. We take a history, and then in many cases we're actually even going to do some lab testing. The lab testing we do might be a little different than what other physicians do, but in the end we might send you to a lab or two. When you come back, that's when it starts to change. That's when it starts to become different. And where it becomes different is instead of you meeting me or another physician and just pulling out the script, we now look at a big picture. We try to, we use the word root cause, although I think that's been overused recently. And we try to first, before saying, okay, let's try to use something to push this down, we look at, there's some problems here at the base. Let's try to fix those first. So we'll move on now to our approach to healthy hormones. What is menopause? Now, what you're going to see when a lot of what you're going to see in a lot of the talks we do is we don't necessarily, you guys can read the slides all you want. I'm just going to sort of glance at them, and then menopause is essentially by definition, the cessation of menstruation. To put a very harsh light on it, in medical terms, we call it ovarian failure. However, the reason we don't use that here, and the reason even the conventional medical industry is using it a lot, is there are many causes that estrogen, progesterone, and some other hormonal dysfunction can happen, not just a natural hormonal failure. Hysterectomy, other things. I want to draw your attention, everybody, to the last one there, because that's something that you don't hear much about. And a few slides later, I'm going to try to tie these two together, but we're seeing something that we're now starting, at least some of us, are calling premature menopause. You don't hear that term out there, but it's a premature ovarian failure, for lack of a better word. And really what's happening, it appears, is that there are feedback loops. All of our hormone systems, like anything else, whether it be insulin, whether it be thyroid, whether it be, everything has a feedback loop. So if a particular level of a hormone starts getting too high, there are mechanisms within the body to say, okay, stop making it, and it'll suppress that. Well, we're getting all these, many of you have heard the word xenohormone, have heard artificial hormones, there are birth control pills, there's hormones in milk, other forms of dairy and meat. So as humanity, we're bombarded with all of these different forms of estrogen, and the response that our body will typically do is to say, okay, I'm not going to make it anymore, or I'm going to make less of it. Well, that can only happen so long before the body sort of backs off permanently and says, I'm just not going to do this anymore. Waking the system back up becomes difficult to almost impossible, almost putting you literally into a state of menopause. And that can happen much earlier than what would normally happen. So one of the reasons it's gaining a lot of popularity and familiarity, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger problem, is we're seeing it early and early and early. So reason number one that we bring this up a lot is we're seeing it potentially earlier. So hold on to that thought as we move forward. Next slide, please. Then this is a part of the why bother. This is the point. You're going to see this slide twice in this talk because, can you go to the next one? There you go. It's not a, people almost think, well, why are you on hormones? We have a lot of people that do very well, and they get a little bit of a headache from some of the people around them. Well, why are you on? What, are you going to live longer? Managing your postmenopausal state, managing your hormones, managing any symptoms that you have is just, a part of it is just that. It's symptoms. A lot of people are walking around with these symptoms that can be successfully treated, whether it be through bioidentical hormones or other means, as Meg and Molly will talk about. They don't need to be like that. There's so much we can do. And as I'm going to outline a little further, there's a science to it. We don't have to. It's not like it was before, 10, 15 years ago, where women would come in, the moment the word hot flash or night sweat or anything like that comes out, you can almost feel the physicians pulling for their script pad to write Premarin or Prempro or all of these other conjugated equine estrogens or progestins that science is now showing us is probably inappropriate. It's probably too much. It's probably having a bad effect. That guesswork is no longer necessary, as we're going to outline here. So we're going to approach this again at the end, but like I said before, what we're going to try to outline in this talk today are the treatment options. That it's not just, I want to emphasize to everybody that it's not just HRT. In many cases it is, and it's sometimes the way we do things here is let's start the hormone replacement and then work on other angles just to try to, you get these people that come in with such severe symptoms, say, okay, well, let's do hormone therapy to begin with, and then follow some other options, and then go back and maybe use less. Again, using the word less is better. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk about this. These are hormone levels. This is progesterone and estrogen. And you can see in the adolescent phase where everybody's heard the terrible teens and all of these teens that are going through these raging mood swings and what have you as a result of their hormones on their way up. And a part of that, if you notice, is the erratic nature of progesterone especially, but also of estrogen. It's not quite as smooth a sail up, but what causes a lot of symptoms is, what a lot of people don't understand is the reaction between those two. So when there's anything more than a 300-to-1 ratio between progesterone and estrogen, things don't do well for people. And in men, there is a similar relationship, believe it or not, actually, between testosterone and progesterone. So as you can see, we don't really blame adolescents for saying, okay, well, your hormones are raging. It's no wonder you have these symptoms. And everybody says, fine, and we get it, and we understand it. Look what happens towards perimenopause, especially, and then menopause. It's even worse. The play around in hormones that happens during the perimenopause and menopausal period is just ridiculous. It's just what happens is it's no wonder that there are symptoms that happen during this phase. It's going up, it's going down, and then at certain periods of time, especially, that ratio right there, that estrogen-progesterone ratio at times can hit 1,000 to 2,000 to 1, making you hugely estrogen dominant, producing a lot of symptoms. Excellent. Now, remember reason number 1 earlier was that this early failure or early menopause. This is reason number 2. Notice what's happening over time. 85, I want everybody to concentrate on the top part of the bar, which is 85 plus years of age. Notice the percentage of our population that are living beyond the age of 85. So think of it this way. The likelihood that you're going to die or pass on or at 65 or 70 is getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. The likelihood that you're going to go through the change in life at the same period, which is 40, 42, 45, even as early as 35, hasn't changed. So what does that translate to? That means instead of 20 years of living through those symptoms and living through the complications that can occur as a result of that, you're now looking potentially to 40 or even 50 years of that. That is another reason. That is reason number 2, that paying attention to your hormone levels and doing something about it, whether it be HRT or something else, is very, very important. If you don't, you're going to just live that much longer with those problems. And there's a lot of evidence. We actually call it the window of opportunity theory. There's a huge theory out there that the longer you wait to start this, the less effect it's going to have. This is reason number 2, to pay a lot of attention, that things are happening earlier and we are living longer, giving the period of misery, for lack of a better word, that much greater. This is a part of the why bother and the science behind it. There is a lot of evidence that the metabolic syndrome is higher in people whose hormones are not. There are some facts we know, especially about estrogen, because estrogen is studied a lot more than testosterone. The lipid panel, when you look at postmenopausal women, they tend to have higher levels of LDL. They tend to have lower levels of HDL, although that is not as significant. But generally, their cholesterol panel is not as good. You give them estrogen, LDL comes down, triglycerides in some cases goes up a little bit, HDL improved, and cholesterol comes down. More importantly, I think I have it on another slide, lipoprotein. There are a lot of new studies right now that lipoprotein (a), which is an inflammatory marker and one of the poorer forms of cholesterol, does actually improve with therapy. Insulin resistance has been shown in several studies that as estrogen declines, insulin resistance goes up. Replacement of estrogen, this is a part of the window of opportunity part where the insulin part and neurologically, a lot of the things that happen neurologically, the longer you wait, the less effect you're going to have on them. And then certain other factors. There's a lot of other factors, bone density, things like that. But these are the things that actually can impact the metabolic syndrome, putting a person at a higher risk for cardiovascular disease. So again, the point we want to emphasize is this is not longevity. Everybody in this room is going to live longer than they think they're going to. That's just, it's almost a fact. We're not dying, in 20, 30 years, we're not going to be dying of heart attacks. We're not going to be dying of strokes. It's unlikely we're going to be dying of cancer. It's really looking like they're coming very close to figuring that one out. And diabetes, things like diabetes, it's going to go away. It's not going to be here in 20 or 30 years. So that is one of the reasons we have to look at it from a standpoint of quality, not necessarily longevity. So now we're going to jump into, we'll go to menopause first and we'll go to andropause later. Symptoms, the very common ones are hot flashes, night sweat, sleeping problems, mood changes. Just today I had a patient and she was so relieved that she wasn't going crazy. I mean, when I was telling her I have this, yes, that's related to progesterone. I have this, that's related to estrogen. You mean I'm not going crazy? No. You mean my husband is right? Yes, he is. So there are definitely symptoms that can be related to these things. And later on, I'm going to show a slide when they interviewed a lot of women that were on HRT or managing their hormones, preferably in some other ways, perhaps. The percentage of them that reported improvements in those symptoms. So if we go to the next slide, please. These are some of the. This is science. This is not hearsay. There is nothing that we can't prove about this. These are, if you look at all of the systems that estrogen has an effect on, right there, you can link those and understand where a lot of these complications are coming from. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's the part where, if we can go to the next one, this is the part where we get into it's no longer a guessing game. We can now get a much, much better idea of what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. Because we can measure. We can measure it in blood, we can measure it in saliva, we can measure it in capillary blood now, which is a finger stick. So it takes the guesswork out of it. You can say, estrogen is low. Oh, your estrogen is low. Well, we got to treat it. Testosterone is low. Your testosterone is low. We got to treat it. Then we can test it afterwards, see that the levels came back up to favorable levels. Not only that, there's a lot of evidence recently about where these levels should be. So it's not a matter of, oh, we think it should be here, let's just keep pushing until you feel better. No, we don't have to do that anymore. We know where the levels of people in the age of 35, 37, 33, up to 40, that's about where we shoot for. Next slide. This is where it's going to start to get really a little complicated. Can you go to the next one? There we go. This one. Now, can you go 2 up? Yes, okay. This slide, what it shows, I wanted again to bring in some of the science, and it does get a little cumbersome here, but what we're understanding now when it comes to, this is trying to address the whole scare out there of estrogen and breast cancer. Well, there's been a lot of studies, especially by the biochemists, trying to figure out to say that, well, wait a minute, it doesn't make sense. Testosterone goes down, testicular cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, dementia, all of these things, cardiovascular disease starts to happen. Estrogen and progesterone levels go down, breast cancer starts to happen, cardiovascular disease, although perhaps later starts to happen, uterine cancer starts to happen, ovarian cancer. How can we say that it is related to the absolute levels of these hormones? So a lot of very, very intelligent people started to go to work and say, okay, maybe because, and a lot of the early studies were done on testosterone, realizing that it's not the hormone itself, but indeed metabolites of those hormones that are to so for example, prostate, it's probably one of the best examples we can give. The prostate, enlargement of prostate cancer, we know that there are medications out there, Avodart, some other ones, that can reduce that. Those medications, it's not rocket science what they do. They block the conversion of testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. That's all they do in life. They don't block cancer cells. They don't do anything to the immune system. They don't do anything directly on the prostate. All they do in life is block conversion of testosterone to dihydrotestosterone, because we now are fairly certain that the culprit behind testosterone issues, male pattern baldness, colon cancer, is a metabolite, dihydrotestosterone. Well, now we have a lot of evidence to show that the same is true for estrogen. We used to think it's that guy over there, 16-hydroxyestradiol, but it's not. It's this whole group. It's the 4-hydroxy metabolite of estrogen that seems to be responsible for increasing cellular growth within breast tissue, leading to breast cancer, the same thing in uterine, the same thing actually in prostate. This one here, the other interesting part about this is we can measure, and I think I have a slide moving on that shows a panel of, can you move on? Yeah, this one, we can measure them now. We can measure all of those metabolites in urine. Not only can we measure them, we know some of these individual ones, things like DIM, saw palmetto, glutathione, the cruciferous, N-acetylcysteine, can block some of the conversion of these things. So again, we have evidence that we can test it, like I said earlier, and then decide which way do we go. Do we want to block the bad hormones? Do we want to get, there's just so much we can do by measuring and using science. So going back to what I said earlier, it starts out, even in our location here, as, well, let's test, let's find out where the problem is. Next slide. Okay, so treatment options. Now we're going to start to, again, hormone replacement therapy, lifestyle changes, herbal therapies, acupuncture. Dr. Perry is going to talk to you guys a little bit about the effect that the adrenals can have on estrogen levels, on testosterone levels, the effect of thyroid. So a part of, before just jumping into hormone replacement therapies, to say, well, is there anything else that might be causing an issue with production of estrogen or the efficacy of estrogen? If there is, let's get rid of that first. And that's one of the ways we do this. Now, hormone therapy guidelines, just really quick. In a nutshell, less is better. I mean, I really couldn't put it any better than that. Only give it to somebody who needs it. Now we can tell, we can measure. Use bioidentical. Orally, avoid it. Again, 3 slides back, we were talking about it's the metabolites that seem to be causing the problem. The androgenic and estrogenic and progesterone, the steroid hormones in general, are metabolized in the liver. When you take something orally, even sublingually sometimes, there's something called the first pass effect. 30 to anywhere from 25 to 50%, the average is 35 to 40% of that drug or whatever it is you took goes through the liver, and a large portion of that gets metabolized. So just by taking it orally, you could be producing more of the hydroxy form. And then use only in dosages appropriate, again, you can measure. So the measurement takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, like we said before. So going really quickly through the bioidentical hormones, some of the things it's known to do: it relieves symptoms, decreases fracture risk, and it improves cholesterol. These are some of the things that have been shown time and time and time again, the direct, almost direct effect that estrogen has. These points are to a degree undeniable. Next one, please. This is what I told you about earlier. Now this, what it means is, it doesn't mean that it reduces hot flashes by 94%. What it means is that they interviewed people women on hormone replacement therapy. 94% of them reported improvement on hot flashes, 92% night sweats, irritability. So these are the numbers. So you can see very clearly that it does help with symptoms. If that's all we want to do, just help with symptoms, it does definitely help with symptoms.
I like the wrinkles.
And with the estriol especially. Estriol is famous for that, yes. Estriol is famous for that. This is the effect of HRT on hot flashes. This is one where that's been studied a lot more extensively. This one's interesting because it shows that just about any estrogen you use is going to reduce hot flashes. Just about any you use. Bioidentical, it's not very clear, but it is a little better, especially early on. I didn't want to bring in any studies. We didn't want to go into the whole scope of bioidentical versus conjugated equine. Is there a lesser incident of cardiovascular disease throughout a breast? It is definitely being shown recently that there is, but nothing definitive. So, and we didn't want to go there. Next slide, please. And I think we're approaching. So these are some of the benefits: treating vasomotor symptoms, the hot flashes, night sweats, some of the other things. Improvement in cholesterol panel. In general, improves overall quality of life. Again, there's a lot of evidence recently that it is not just a quality thing, but it is improving things like cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, things that are dementia, onset of dementia. I just was listening to a talk today about the effect of estrogen on warding off dementia. It's so much evidence as they're starting to look at it more and more and more. Next one, we're approaching. Again, the guidelines, I really want to emphasize this. The reason I want to emphasize this is, in the end, hormone replacement therapy is a prescription. Less is better. Less is absolutely better. If we can do it without any, we'll do it without any. If we can do it with just a little bit, we're going to do it with a little bit. Gone are the days of just showering people with hormones left and right. We don't do that anymore. Now, andropause really quickly. Again, diminished production of testosterone. I like to say it's not rocket science. It's pretty much been proven a long time ago. Some of the symptoms. Notice that reduced motivation. It's interesting, in women, reduced hormones causes mood swings and irritability. In men, they just get depressed. That's pretty much and you see it so often. Next slide. This again is showing from ZRT. Again, it's not guesswork anymore. We don't just have to go by symptoms. We can actually measure these things. We can see testosterone, like in this case, testosterone is low, hormones are low. We don't have to try to guess at it. So again, the treatment options in general for andropause, just as it is for menopause, hormone replacement therapy, lifestyle changes, herbal therapies where necessary, and acupuncture. Same thing, the same premise applies. Look at the whole picture, don't just look at numbers. Okay, that's where my part ends. Like I said, we're going to cover a few more things, 2 more things here. Dr. Perry's going to join us and give us a little bit about the interactions and natural therapies, and then Molly's going to join us after that.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Are you going to advance your slides, or do you want me to?
I can. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So I'm going to give a little bit of a counter to this. We're going to talk about balancing your hormones with a more natural approach. So let's just jump right in. Dr. Carr's done a great job of explaining, you know, what it is, what you can expect. So we're going to talk about why would you choose a natural approach after you hear about how great the hormones are and all they can do for you. You know, what would be some of the things that would make somebody choose going natural versus getting the bioidentical hormones? And one of the things that I like to point out is that even though it's called ovarian failure, it is a natural process. It's what all women go through. And so there's a reason, though, why some women just kind of glide right through it without any issues. And some women really do have a lot of issues. I have women who come in who are having, you know, night sweats and they're just soaking their bed and it's just absolutely miserable. Whereas other women are like, I guess I went through it. I think it was, you know, a couple years ago. I'm not really sure why. So there's reasons for that. And one of the things that the hormone replacement doesn't do is it doesn't really correct those underlying reasons as to why your hormones weren't able to sort of manage themselves as you went through it. So we're going to talk about some of that. So it is that obviously your hormones, we know, are out of balance during perimenopause, but even during that time, we can still help with symptom relief naturally. And we can also help you move to the level at menopause where they're back in balance and you don't have a problem with that and make that transition really nice. So that's one of the reasons why you'd want to choose it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that affect women, and we'll also talk about men's hormones that lead to that imbalance as to whether it's going to be easy for you or whether it's not going to be easy for you. The other thing is that when you listen to the symptoms that your body is presenting, it's really the way that your body communicates with you. And so, you know, I fell in love with naturopathic medicine when I first started studying anatomy and physiology. To me, it's amazing what Dr. Carr was talking about. Your body has this great balance within it, this homeostasis where it's telling you, oh, I have enough of this hormone, let's decrease it, let's increase this. So it is your symptoms are the way that your body is communicating with you and telling you something is going wrong. So when you're not sleeping well at night, your body is telling you, I'm not managing the lifestyle right now. Although we may feel fine during the day, the stress is coming out at night. So by just kind of getting rid of some of those symptoms, you're going to sleep better without a doubt. And for some women, that is absolutely the right choice. But for other women, it's kind of a journey and it's kind of exciting to keep that line of communication open, to see, okay, how am I doing now? Okay, my sleep is better. You know what? I have women come in and we have markers. And I say, okay, this is your marker to know when you're in balance or not. And it may be something simple, like my joints kind of swell up. All right, now we know that's your marker of inflammation. We don't need to wait until it's horrible. We know that when your joints start to feel a little swollen, it's because you have more inflammation. Let's go back. Let's revisit. Are you following the diet? Are you doing some of the supplements? Does your lifestyle need to change? Everybody has these little markers. For some women, it's more hot flashes. For some women, it's night sweats. For some women, like I said, you know, joints, different things start to sort of ache, but your body's telling you something with it. So that's why I love what I do. To me, it's a little bit of investigative practice that I get to put these pieces together. And so by really doing the natural approach, we are going to take a little bit longer, but we're going to figure out what's going on. And in the long run, you too will remain healthy. So even though estrogen can lower your LDL and balance out your cholesterol a little bit, we can do that as well because we're going to look at your thyroid. We're going to look at your adrenals. We know that women, as your thyroid starts to slow down, which also happens, young women tend to have a thyroid of like 1.5, 1.9. Those are the women, they can eat whatever they want. They're not gaining weight. And as you get older, you're still getting told, oh, your thyroid's normal, but it's 2.5, 2.9, 3.5. We're going to help that thyroid. And when we know that when your thyroid is starting to slow down, your cholesterol goes up. So there's this really nice relationship between all these hormones. And so by looking at them, we get to correct all those. So I'm just giving a couple examples of things that natural options do really well with. I work with a lot of young women who have very irregular very painful cycles. Absolutely, it's a no-brainer. We do here through our integrative clinic, we do a 30-day test, which is not one that you can get elsewhere. And we look at your hormones throughout those 30 days, and we can see where are you cycling, how are things falling, and really make some big changes here with both the cramping, the PMS, as well as, you know, if women's cycles are not regular and they want them to be regular, especially for fertility reasons. You know, people who have low progesterone, women who are trying to get pregnant, this is a big thing. We can really help with a lot of natural herbs to increase your progesterone naturally and therefore really hold on to, increase your ability to get pregnant and that thing. Birth control, nowadays we have a lot of women who might go on birth control. A lot of young women get put on it because their cycles are painful in the beginning. So some girls are going on at 15, 16 years old just to help normalize their cycles. By the time that you're 28 and you want to start getting pregnant, you've been on birth control for 13 years. And so it's going to take a while for your body to really ramp back up. And so that's one of the things, you know, I like doing, and we do quite nicely and do well. Obviously, women who are in their 40s, this is the time when your hormones are starting to change. And so there's some things that you can look at this point and go, is this going to be an issue for me? If you are constipated, you are going to be reconjugating your estrogens and you're going to have a harder time. So this is something that, like when I do an intake with somebody, I'm going to sit down with somebody in their 40s. They're not even thinking perimenopause because 40 is really, really young. But I'm thinking, okay, we need to work on this a little bit because I know what's coming down the line. If you're already having trouble sleeping, if you're overweight, you're going to have a little bit more perimenopausal issues. If you're having trouble sleeping in your early 40s, late 30s, it's usually stress related. But we're going to see later on that the same adrenal glands that really work with stress are also what needs to pick up the slack when your ovaries fail. And and so if those are already stressed, they're not going to be able to do that, and I'll show you why. And so this, again, is a reason for a natural approach, because we can go back and we can help balance this out for you. Obviously, you know, once you're in your 50s and you're in the midst of it, then we can certainly help with some symptom relief. And again, if somebody is having just a terrible time with menopause, there's certainly nothing wrong with maybe going on the hormones for a little bit, and then we still go back and we still correct these things. It's one of the advantages of working in an integrative clinic, but still we do a lot of great symptom relief here. Obviously for men, then we're going to talk about prostate health, stress and anxiety for men, testosterone, and the beauty of integrative medicine. So let's get going. All right, so when we're talking about a natural approach, it is complicated. It's not a quick fix. I have, you know, people often come in and they almost want me to prescribe them a herb the way that they might be prescribed a hormone replacement. And it just doesn't really work that way. If you have very mild symptoms, then yeah, something like black cohosh might just be enough and do the trick for you. Usually that's not the people that I see, because you can pick that up in any Whole Foods. You know, you can get your Remifennin. So what I usually see is people who are having sort of this stew of hormones, and they affect each other. And that's the thing, is that when we all know, all women and all men who have ever lived with women, when your estrogen drops, you get a little bit more irritable. And it's because when your estrogen drops, your serotonin doesn't suddenly drop. It's not like you lose your serotonin, but estrogen does help enhance the serotonin receptors. And so your serotonin essentially does come down. So there's an interplay there. A really nice thing that we can also do sometimes for women who have or who have had breast cancer and are having hot flashes and don't want to necessarily mess with HRT, you can go back and do serotonin. For a lot of women, you hit their serotonin again through, naturally we do 5-HTP, we don't give any type of SSRI, but that will also help to ease some of those hot flashes. So again, it's that nice interplay that we get to sit down and really look at. Your progesterone supports the calming influence of GABA, another neurotransmitter. That GABA is what you need at the end of the day to kind of calm you down. This is why a lot of women go out and they pick up that natural progesterone cream, which it drives me crazy that it's sold in the stores. I'm glad that supplements are, but there is no such thing as a natural progesterone cream. Anytime that you see that, it has been chemically altered to actually be progesterone, and it's the only hormone that we sell over the counter. And so women start doing progesterone, and you feel fantastic the first couple months. And then your hormones go out of balance because, like Dr. Cara said, now you're really pushing progesterone, and that gets really high, and your estrogen is too low, and your body's trying to up the estrogen to catch up with the progesterone, and it can just become a nightmare. So please don't do the over-the-counter progesterone. Please come and get tested, and then if you want the progesterone, let Dr. Cara prescribe for you the right amount and continue to test, because it will really throw you off. But it does feel good in the beginning, and that's really one of the first things is, your progesterone tends to drop, and you get a little wiggy, and it feels nice. We talk about your adrenal hormones. I'm going to show a little bit more on this, but definitely when your adrenals are overworked, and we talked about having trouble sleeping at night, you're having a lot of stress, it starts to affect your thyroid. So thyroid picks up the slack for the adrenals, but only for so long, and then the thyroid also starts to slow down. And also within the adrenals, when we look at this, is that your testosterone production can be shunted towards cortisol rather than towards testosterone. Now, this is much more true for women because men's primary testosterone production is still going to be in the testes, but some of it is produced here. So this is another place to look at. So this is the thing. I just don't feel like myself anymore. For men, this is what we hear. Your testosterone is dropping, and this is how you feel. So definitely, Dr. Cara already went through sort of what's going on, but some of the causes for imbalance, again, that stress, that higher levels of cortisol can definitely wreak havoc on your testosterone production. Hops is a big one. Hops is estrogenic. We give hops to women if we want more estrogen in our younger women. So men who are drinking a lot of beer are getting a lot of hops, and it has an estrogenic effect. We've seen, actually, Dr. Cara and I shared a patient recently who had very low cholesterol and had very low testosterone. Did a dramatic change of diet, really increased the amount of fat that the person was eating, and of course, their cholesterol came into a nice level, didn't go high, but their testosterone really came up. Lack of exercise, and as you gain weight, fat cells produce estrogen as well. So it's kind of a double whammy. If you drink a lot of beer and you're getting an estrogenic effect and you gain weight from it, and then your fat cells are producing estrogen, men can also have more estrogen than what would be healthy for them. And that's going to obviously have an impact on their testosterone. So for women, I just don't feel like myself anymore. Obviously, what's going on in cycling years, perimenopause, and menopausal years, I think we're kind of familiar with that, but what's going on for women, again, we're going to see this next. We're going to look a little bit at what goes on in terms of stress and how this impacts you. High levels of cortisol definitely lead to that decreased production of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And this is, again, primarily perimenopausal, where your adrenals have to pick up that slack for you. Increased fat tissue, lack of exercise, you're going to have more estrogen. So we can definitely see women who are a little bit more estrogen dominant just from that alone. I kind of touched on constipation and liver problems, but I see it so often that, I have women who will come in and they may just think they're going to talk about hot flashes, and here I am talking about their bowel habits. But it's such an important thing, and if you're not regular, what happens is as those hormones go through the liver and they're excreted into the bile and they're put into the small intestines, and then you're not having any type of bowel movements, they get reabsorbed and they actually get reconjugated, and they come back into a stronger form of estrogen, and so you feel it more. And then, as Dr. Cara touched on, the estrogenic effects that we're getting from our environment. We are getting it from the bisphenol A, which is in so many of our bottles. Thank goodness they're finally taking it out, and so now you can get bisphenol A-free bottles. We're getting it from meats, dairies, from pesticides, herbicides. We are just really inundated with a lot of estrogens, which are just wreaking havoc for women. So this is what I was talking about, just a little quick picture of some places where we can intervene and kind of what goes on when I was talking about how your adrenals have to pick up the slack. So when the ovaries are not producing and not consistently producing as much of your estrogen and progesterone, what happens in the adrenals is that we take our cholesterol and take our pregnenolone and we can turn it into progesterone here. We can turn it into cortisol down here. We turn it into our estrogens here, or we turn it into testosterone here. So under a lot of stress, what happens? It just gets shunted right down here, and you end up with really high cortisol. And nothing is stopping at progesterone. Nothing is going to your estrogens, and definitely nothing for women is going to testosterone. Okay? And so this is why the adrenals play such a huge role, and why I can start to guess by looking at women's symptoms in their 40s, how they may end up going through perimenopause and menopause in their 50s. Because if this is already out of balance, you're going to have a hard time when it comes to it. So it's really one of the beauties of natural medicine is we get to do some real preventative work here for you. We get to rebalance this, and you're going to have an easier time later on. Some of the places that we like to sort of interface outside of just herbs, which herbs play an integral role here as well, is we sometimes will give pregnenolone, and pregnenolone can then be a precursor. Pregnenolone is another one that you can find over the counter. The problem with using pregnenolone without the wisdom of what's behind it and the reasons why is that if you give pregnenolone to a woman who still is running really high adrenal and really high cortisol, they're just going to take it and shunt it even further. They're going to end up with higher levels of cortisol. So you only really want to do pregnenolone for somebody who is managing the stress and you're doing a lot of other really nice adrenal support for them. The other place where we can interact is their DHEA. And if people have heard of DHEA, it's, for a while it was considered the youth hormone and everyone wanted it. And it is fantastic. DHEA for a lot of women really does go to that testosterone. And testosterone for women is a great thing. And then it also goes to estrogens. But again, you don't want to push that if you're not already, if you need it and you're low, we use it. But if you're not low, you don't want to push the cycle. All right, so the role of testosterone for men and women, Dr. Parr already went over this. For women, it definitely contributes to, your lean muscle, your fat burning, your metabolism, definitely contributes to libido in women. For men, if you have low testosterone, you tend to have low energy, low mood, low sex drive, changes in your sleep patterns. I see men, Dr. Parr was talking about depression. I see a lot of anxiety really is in men. So you hit those lower levels of testosterone, a lot of pressure, and we see a lot more anxiety coming out for men as well. So ways to increase your testosterone for men and women naturally. One of the things, and this is mostly coming out of this Pennsylvania State University Center for Sports Medicine, and they of course did their research with men, but this is also true for women. Increase your strength training. You absolutely have to increase your strength training if you want to increase your testosterone. But they talked specifically about instead of doing, the 10 reps with a couple minute rest in between, really cutting down the rest in between, but also shortening the number of reps. So you're doing maybe more weight, fewer times with fewer rests. And that was one of the ways that they tested men before and after, and they produced more testosterone. So when you're looking at your strength training routine, that might be something to consider. The other thing was you definitely need some lean protein, but even more so, people are just filling up on protein drinks and protein, and I know so many people eat, chicken breast, and then they go work out, and then they have a protein drink, and then they have more protein. It's not the protein. You need a moderate amount. What was even more so effective was the healthy fats. So when the men in this controlled study increased their healthy fats, their testosterone went up. Why? Because testosterone is produced from cholesterol. So you need to have enough healthy fat in order to produce it. And people think, oh, I want to bulk up, I need to eat protein. Well, it doesn't just go from protein to protein. It has to go through you. And so really it's the lean fats that make a difference. This was interesting. I didn't know this at all, and that's always fun to do these talks because you always do a little bit more research and go, perfect. Men who took calcium along with their strength training also increased their testosterone more than either strength training alone or calcium alone. I thought that was interesting, kind of a good thing. We think about calcium for women. We don't think about calcium so much for men, although it's important. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's a way to increase your testosterone naturally. Zinc, magnesium, B6, and vitamin C all help to increase your testosterone. These are all really important in terms of increasing fertility. These are also really good for your adrenals. So a nice little improvement there. Obviously, manage stress and sleep well. Have sex. The more sex you have, the more testosterone you have. True for men, true for women. I guess it's a use it or lose it type of thing. So sex at least once a week. Limit your alcohol intake to 1 drink a day. And maca is a really nice herb. In our field, we've been using maca for, I've been in this for 15 years. I've been using maca for 15 years. It's a food item. We used to give it as a powder and people would just eat it. It's really nice. It's both adaptogenic for the adrenals and it does help improve testosterone in both men and women. I had one of my patients that when I was first learning about maca, I gave her some maca along with the black cohosh, get rid of her hot flashes, increase her libido. I get a bottle of wine from her husband on my desk. Apparently it works. All right, so menopause symptoms vary from women to women. And this really has to do with, and this is why the simple taking of a supplement is not always effective. And it breaks my heart when women go out and they say, oh, I tried black cohosh, it didn't work, I'm just going to go on HRT. It's because there's so much more interplay here. And we can do so much more than just the simple, black cohosh. So some women may have low estrogen and healthy progesterone. You may have high estrogen and low progesterone. You may have, a combination of high testosterone, low testosterone. So we really need to kind of see where you're at, and then we can start choosing herbs that are really going to make a big difference for you. Testing is helpful. Kind of put up here what testing should include. This is what we do. This is what Dr. Carr, if you saw, really we're able to read his tests. We're looking at your cortisol, we're looking at your DHEA, we're looking at your thyroid, your estrogen, progesterone. Sometimes for women, it's helpful to look at your neurotransmitters as well. So that's another thing that we can do, as well as for men, especially with the depression and anxiety. We can look at your serotonin, your GABA, and see what's going on there. So we have supplements for both men and women. For men, basically we're looking at increasing testosterone. We're also looking at decreasing estrogen if you have a little bit more of that estrogenic effect. We want to improve your prostate health. That's kind of an easy no-brainer. It's almost like you need to take fish oil, CoQ10, and you should really be taking a prostate supplement if you're a man over 45. It makes a huge difference. As you get older, you start to find out exactly where all the bathrooms are, everywhere you go. So just do preventive medicine and just use it. It makes a dramatic difference. And really, we want to help you sleep better and sort of calm down the system there. For women, we either need to increase or decrease estrogen depending on where you are. Definitely, we can increase women's progesterone. I kind of showed one pathway through the adrenals, but also for women who are younger and we're not looking at the adrenals, we have fabulous herbs that will increase your progesterone if we need to just balance out your cycle. We're looking at decreasing testosterone and PCOS, a balance of estrogen and progesterone, and we'll support your adrenals. And again, the neurotransmitters obviously make a big difference if we need to balance those as well. So people always ask, what should I take? What should I take? So I put together a couple. I'm always hesitant because, somebody's going to take it and it's not going to work. Please know if you decide to try something and it doesn't work, please know that there's a lot of other things that we can do, and don't use this as the one example of what didn't work for you. But I put together a couple here. We have our Biofem HRT, and these are up. We have a handout up here that sort of discusses all these. This Biofem HRT I like because it has the pregnenolone in it. So if you are not stressed, but you are starting to be a little bit low estrogen and progesterone, this is a nice one. Okay. Estrofactors is really more for that crazy fluctuation, whether it's PMS, whether it's perimenopause. That seems to work really nicely. This one I had to throw in there. It's kind of fun. It balances both the adrenals, and it also has maca in it. You don't often find maca in women's formulas, but this one does. This is a good company. I trust them, and it's, you know, fun. You might want to play with that one a little bit. This is one of my favorites for hot flashes. If you're having trouble sleeping and you're having hot flashes, this is a nice supplement if you just want to, you know, give something a shot. I suggest that you start with testing, but, you know, people sometimes just want to try supplements. And then we threw in a really nice maca. Men or women can use it. It'll bring some energy and vitality back. Nothing here is, it's not like taking Viagra. So, you know, don't expect it to work in an hour or two. But over time, it definitely can be helpful. And what we can do to help, obviously, like Dr. Cara said, we're integrative. We work together. People oftentimes will see Dr. Cara, see me, see Molly. We can all work together to kind of get a good, healthy plan for you in place. And then we have some special going on right now that Gloria's going to talk about after Molly. So one of the nice things as well about this practice, I have to say, is that we are really here for people. You know, if you have a question in between appointments, we are happy to answer it. It's not like other practices where you can't get a hold of your doctor. We're here, we'll help you, we'll take you through what needs to be done. Okay. Thank you.
So I believe our time is more limited than perhaps
A little bit.
but
Yep. Do you guys have the energy to listen to all about acupuncture and Molly?
I can keep it brief. I have
And then we'll take
focus on
questions
the-
if you want, or we can do that informally and just get some more food.
I can focus on the key aspects I wanted to bring up today. So I'm here to talk about acupuncture for hormone health, obviously. But to start off, go ahead to the first slide. I want to kind of say, what is acupuncture? Because I'm not sure that everyone here has the same level of familiarity as I do with it. So, you know, I don't know if any of you have tried it or know much about it, but
How many have tried it? Anybody?
that's a good
Oh, yeah.
showing.
You got it. Yeah.
Well, here's my little elevator speech. Acupuncture is a complete and holistic medical system in which hair-thin needles are placed at specific acupoints located along meridians that run up and down the body. This activates the body's energy to support its natural self-healing power and correct the energetic imbalances that have led to the symptoms you're experiencing. So, and we have a nice little graphic that Gloria found for me that shows the compares the size, the actual size of a acupuncture needle. Because one of the primary questions people ask is, does it hurt? And you know, the answer is it's very little. There might be a little pinch. You know, some people feel nothing at all, but overall, it's so thin you can hardly feel it. It's not at all like a shot, and people are always amazed that they are expecting a bunch of shots. So, but the main things I want to pull out of this slide is that it is a complete medical system, which means that it can treat virtually any disorder. So most people have heard about acupuncture in the treatment of pain. And I do see a lot of pain, and it works very well for pain, but you can use it for all sorts of conditions, which I'll get to in a second. But the other thing is that the acupuncture isn't healing you, you're healing yourself. It's a self, it's supporting your body's self-healing power. So that's the other thing. Sometimes people wonder if I'm injecting something into them, like a drug or a medication, but no, we're working with the energy of the body to sort of push it where it needs to go and help your body to heal itself. So you can go to the next slide, which talks about the numerous conditions that the NIH, and the following slide is the World Health Organization. We can just take a brief look at this. 1997 National Institute of Health Consensus Statement. These are all conditions that it has found that it can be helpful for: nausea, addiction, headaches, menstrual cramps, tennis elbow, different sorts of pain, low back pain, carpal tunnel. You can go to Health Organization. They also talk about emotional, so anxiety, insomnia, depression, digestive issues, respiratory issues. So, and just looking at some of these lists, some of these things that are being pulled out is, a lot to do with, can be hormonally related. So as it relates to today's topic, You know, some of these, the emotional, the depression, the anxiety, the insomnia, you know, things that we've talked about. We'd also talked about, you know, menstrual cramps, all those sorts of things, PMS. We all know those are hormones, hormonally related. You can go to the next slide here. Okay, and so these are hormonal health conditions that I often see in my office. You know, as you can see, a lot of the things listed up here are more women's health conditions, menstrual, infertility, pregnancy, menopause. But there's other issues that men do come in for, you know, related to andropause. And I just tend to see more women in the office, and the men that come in will often come in for pain. But there are men who do come in for multiple things, and it can be very helpful. I've treated different symptoms of andropause, or what you would, you know, call, what would fall under those, that title, with good success. And menopause, particularly, in women get great responses with acupuncture, with hot flashes and night sweats. I like to treat menopause because they always get good results. So I can't say enough about that. But also stress, anxiety, I really enjoy treating those sorts of things too, because I think for hormonal conditions you get good results with acupuncture because it can treat the hormonal, you know, it can regulate the hormones, as I'm going to show you later. Okay, you can go to the next slide there. So that comes to the question, how does acupuncture work? And it's a more complicated question, but there's two perspectives. There's an Eastern Chinese perspective, and there's the Western perspective. So first I'll go a little bit into the Eastern perspective, which basically all boils down to the yin and the yang. And most of us are familiar with what yin and yang are. We've seen that little symbol, the black and the white. And, you know, basically all of Chinese culture, philosophy boils down to the balance of yin and yang and keeping them in balance. And that, I wrote a little thing about it. It's basically, what it means is that, what that symbol means is that it's that life is a balance of two opposite yet complementary forces that cannot be separated. They can't exist without one another. That's why you have a little, you know, speck of black inside the light and a little light inside of black. There's yin within yang and there's yang within yin. So health is the balance of the two. When they become imbalanced and when one is higher, one is lower, there's illness. When they separate, there's death. So, and there's different ways to look at what yin and yang is inside the body physiologically. The easiest way to just talk about it is through the qi in the blood. And qi is the vital energy of our bodies, and it's the yang energy. It's warming, it's activating, it's energetic. Blood is more yin. It's substantive. It's moistening. It's nourishing. Comparatively, it's more cooling than the qi. But the way acupuncture works is that the qi and blood flow through the meridians of the body. You can go to the next slide a little bit. The meridians are up and down the entire body, front, back, and along those meridians are the points. And basically what, you know, illness is caused by stagnation of qi and blood along these channels. Go back to the previous slide, I think I had it written down there. I also wanted to mention that internally, all of these meridians are connected to different organ systems. So there's a liver channel, there's the spleen channel, there's you know, the heart channel, there's the kidney channel. And so when we diagnose, we look at what channel is affected and what organ system is affected, and that's how we diagnose. It's what we call a pattern diagnosis. And we look to see what energy is out of balance. So if the qi is excess in one energy, causes certain symptoms. Or if the blood is deficient in another channel, that causes these sort of symptoms. So we're taught to look at illness as a pattern of symptoms, as a symptomatic picture. And that's how we diagnose, and that's how we treat, and that's how we choose the points that we want to use. Because all the points have different functions. But anyways, at a very basic level, energy imbalance within the channels causes illness. The energy doesn't go the way it's supposed to. It doesn't flow where it needs to go. It doesn't get to the right organ system. It doesn't nourish that organ system. Similar, just the same way that we can think of as blood nourishing our tissues. You know, the qi needs to nourish our tissues, our organs. And what we're doing with the needles is reestablishing proper flow again, so your body can heal itself. It's not always a really fast result necessarily. Sometimes you get really fast results, but it can be a slower process. So sometimes people don't want to stick with it, but it is really important to stick with it, even after you start to feel better, because you can more easily go back into those old patterns if you don't, you stick with getting enough treatments and going through with it all. But, okay, you can go back to that way and then go to the next. All right, so then we have biomedical perspective. And so I'm coming back to the 1997 National Institute of Health consensus on acupuncture, which reported that studies have demonstrated that acupuncture can cause multiple biological responses mediated mainly by sensory neurons to many structures within the central nervous system. This can lead to the activation of pathways affecting various physiological systems in the brain as well as the periphery. So they don't know entirely how it's all working. There's no one overriding theory and principle that they can figure out, but they have determined that there are certain physiological effects taking place within the body as a result of the needling. These are things that can be measured. So the release of endorphins and neurohormones and neurotransmitters, it can regulate the blood flow. So here it says, suggests that acupuncture can activate the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, resulting in a broad spectrum of systemic effects. So somehow it's able to, regulate our nervous system, regulate the hormones, regulate the blood chemistry. Exactly how those pathways, how that's done isn't quite spelled out yet, but I'm sure it will in the future. All right, so you can go to the next slide there. So the next few slides that I have are basically related to just different issues that we treat. And like I was saying before, it kind of goes back to the same thing. So how I treat all of these symptoms. All these symptoms, I can make patterns. Looking at those symptoms, the irritability is caused by stagnation of qi, the liver channel. So typically, that's an example. So just look at the picture, look at the symptoms that someone is presenting with, and can develop a pattern diagnosis and treat accordingly. And so all these slides are kind of the same. This is PMX. The next one I pulled out was fertility. So fertility is a big one in the clinic because there's been several different studies throughout the last decade or so indicating, that acupuncture can help with achieving pregnancy, especially with IVF, because that's where the studies have been centered around. But you can also use it to try to get pregnant naturally, and you can use it for pre-pregnancy treatments, even women not struggling with infertility. It works. It's what I'm doing is working with a woman's menstrual cycle to optimize her body's, functioning. So again, I can't get anybody pregnant, but I can help the body to the energy to go where it needs to go so that conception can occur. The next slide, I think, is a synopsis of the studies, what the studies have shown as far as acupuncture and fertility, that it reduces release of hormones related to stress, which is a big issue in fertility, stress levels. Also, one can expect improved hormonal balance, strengthened immune system, improved blood flow to the uterus, and thicker lining, improved stress levels. Just kind of repeat it. And also menopause. Again, it's kind of the same things that I would be saying. I would look, the common diagnosis in menopause is yin deficiency. Yin is the cooling, the moistening of the body. And when the yin becomes deficient as women age, then we see hot flashes, we see dryness, the symptoms. And so what we're trying to do is balance it. And I use acupuncture. I also use Chinese herbs in my practice. So, if someone's open to doing some Chinese herbs, you can use the herbs to do the same thing and then just kind of support the acupuncture treatment. And then andropause. Again, and when men age, their yang goes first. So the yang depletes, and then are typically, colder or lower energy things are lower and more depressed. So the yang is the activating energy, just like, everyone was saying beforehand here. But again, so we look at the symptomatic picture and treat what we see and treat at the underlying cause to affect the symptoms. And I think finally, the last slides I have here are facial rejuvenation, which I believe we will be doing a happy hour next month, perhaps, or in the future, specifically regarding facial rejuvenation, so we can get more on that topic then. But go to the next slide here. It basically is a non-surgical method of reducing the signs of aging. So, reduces wrinkles, brightens and even skin tones, dark circles under the eyes. And I use a combination of acupuncture and massage, acupressure. And we're also treating body points as well as face points. So I'm treating the underlying factors as well. Because again, you can look at the pattern. Everybody has different reasons for why the wrinkles are the way they are, etc. Or what's going on in their particular face. So there's diagnoses for that, and you treat accordingly as well. You can go to the next one there. Oh, here is our famous people who use the facial rejuvenation. But this is what it improves: blood circulation, stimulates collagen production, balance hormones, which you already said, and can stimulate the production of growth hormone. Those are all different, results of different studies that have been done on facial acupuncture. And finally, this is the last one, is the AccuGraph slide, which it doesn't really relate to hormones per se, but it's a tool that I use in my practice. It's actually a software program that can help me to measure your energy and what imbalances are present in your channels. So it's actually kind of cool, and you can get a little printout, a little readout. It gives you some sort of concrete evidence to take home with you to say, okay, this is what's out of balance. Acupuncture is a little esoteric. You can't really grab it or grasp it. It's sort of kind of out there. So this kind of brings it, into the realm of we're used to. It makes it more scientific, and it just, it's something you can kind of grab and understand a little bit better. And you can do it week by week, and you can see improvements. See whether your graph is getting better, see what energies still need to be worked on, and so forth. So that's just a little bit about
that. Okay, how was that for you? Too much, too little, good? Did you enjoy that? I could tell you a million stories about everything that they just talked about, like the gentleman that Molly sees, who's been getting facial acupuncture for as long as he was one of our first clients actually, years ago. And he's in his 90s and his skin looks like, I don't know, you know who I'm talking about, like Karen does. He looks like he's maybe in his 60s. It's unbelievable. And he came in and said, people just don't respect you that much when you start to look old. They don't pay attention to you. And he said, I don't want that to happen to me. So that's one example. But there's so many people that we've been able to help through all of these different things, and it just makes sense. I think that's why I started this business, was that healthcare didn't make sense to me. I couldn't understand why people waited until they were broken or they looked terrible or they felt terrible to try to do something about it. And then at that point, kind of what you were saying about the hormones, Dr. Carr, if you wait too long, it's harder to get an effect. I think you just start as soon as you can, start taking care of yourself, learn what you can learn. We've lost what medicine was meant to be. If you look at the word doctor, it comes from the word docere, and that means to teach. When do you go to the doctor and learn something? I think we've lost that personal touch. And that's something that a naturopath, and before I introduced Meg, I should have asked you, how many people here know what a naturopathic doctor is? Or have you ever seen one? Just a very few of you. It's a very, very interesting field, and I give Meg credit for having gone in it as far back as she did. It's kind of, people are just now learning about it, but the essence of naturopathic medicine is to learn all the sciences, just like any other doctor, but rather than learning how to treat symptoms with medications and do surgery, although I think you do learn some surgical skills. Men can do surgery. But what you're learning is how to use lifestyle, nutrition, therapeutically to treat medical conditions. Everything that we need is nature has for us, for the most part. I mean, there's going to come a day where everybody's going to die, and that's just the way it is. But while you're living, you should live and feel good. People will say, well, people are living longer. Dr. Cara had a slide that showed how much longer people are living. But how do you want to spend those added years? Do you want to spend them playing with your grandchildren, having a good time, or maybe it's travel that you like to do? Or do you want to be laying in a nursing home, having somebody change your diaper? You have a choice, and it really is up to you. You just need to learn how to do things. And I don't know if you can see the sign in the corner. We're kind of hiding the mess back there, but it says Wellness Made Easy, and that's really what we try to do here for you. We make wellness easy. Don't make it harder than it has to be. It's not that difficult. When you go downstairs, I would encourage you to take a look at a book that we wrote last year called Wellness 101, and it's the basics, really, of what you need to know to stay well. And our staff worked on it, but primarily it was Meg and I that put that together, and we're really excited about it. It's something that we're in the process of publishing, and I encourage you to take a look at it. It's really fun, and we can help you with that. But that's kind of how we approach what we do here. It's Wellness 101. Meg had mentioned earlier, there's a few postcards laying around. I think they're at the front desk. We have, this is the one that talks about the easy button. And it's kind of a cool special that we're doing right now, where if you want to see what you can do from a natural perspective, we have a special where you see Dr. Cara for 30 minutes and Meg for 30 minutes and kind of get your game plan going, and that's $195. And if you schedule your appointments tonight, you can save another $10. So you're saving about $75, which is really nice. We just want to introduce people to the concept and get them to understand what we do here and experience it for themselves. So I'd encourage you to do that. Are there any questions for anybody that, yeah?
When you do those tests, I'm guessing after consultation you do those tests, how much do those typically run?
The tests all vary. It depends. We usually will just have you deal with the testing company in terms of your health insurance. Some things are covered, some aren't. We used to actually collect money for them and sell them ourselves. It's too complicated. Most of them are pretty reasonable. When Dr. Cara orders hormone testing, you can go to LabCorp or Quest and get those done. If you want to do that 30-day hormone test, you just fill out the form and send it into the insurance, to the company, and they'll do it. So we just order them. We do really cool testing. We do brain chemistry testing. If you're having problems with depression, anxiety, insomnia, what are some of the other?
Low energy,
Fatigue, low energy. It could have something to do with your neurotransmitters. Meg mentioned serotonin, dopamine, GABA. All of those things play into how you feel, how well your mind works, how sharp you are, how clear you are. And those all originate from your gut. A lot of people don't know that your gut is your second brain, so it's also very much impacted by how you're eating and the nutrition that you're taking in. And even if you're eating a great diet, it doesn't always mean that your body's able to absorb it and functionally utilize the nutrition, because there could be biochemical things going on that are blocking that absorption, especially if you're on pharmaceutical medications. That can happen. But the bottom line is that each and every one of you is biochemically unique, and if you can honor that biochemical uniqueness and ferret out exactly what your numbers show, and work from that perspective and get to the root cause, as we talked about earlier, and build from there, that's where you're going to get your best results. And you'll be in charge rather than a drug. I can't tell you how many people get started on that pharmaceutical route. And there's things called side effects. You don't have to have me tell you that. All you have to do is listen to a commercial on television where the person's like skipping through the valley and there's butterflies all over the place, and then they tell you at the end that it could cause a heart attack, you could die from it, your head might explode, and you're going to take it anyway, and you really shouldn't use that as your first line of defense. I'm not knocking conventional medicine, I'm not knocking the drugs, I'm just saying that should not be your first go-to. Try to do it yourself, try to stay in charge, don't give up your power. We say empower yourself with wellness, and that's why. So the lab test, just to answer your question, that was a long answer, but all the different lab tests, that we order. You can, if you have health insurance, you can send it in. If not, we usually will pass on our price, the professional price, to our clients. So we try to make it affordable, is the bottom line.
The only thing I would add to that is the advantage of if we have perhaps a national clinic, because I'm an MD when I order it, if it is covered by insurance, it will be covered by insurance. And that we try to accept, because I can put, it was one of the reasons we interviewed people, I can put an ICD-9 and now we're moving to ICD-10 codes. So it's, and even if it's not, if it's an out of network, which some of these are, it can be applied, it will at least be applied to your deductible. You know, you have to talk to your insurance company sometimes, but that's the least that will happen when an MD is working. So that's one big advantage.
But I think a lot of the things you've mentioned tonight are not typically covered by traditional insurance.
Not necessarily, no. Actually, when it comes to straight hormone testing, they by and large are. It used to be that the saliva panels were the best and only really good way of doing it. Blood panels have, in fact, in the last 2 years, I'm seeing free estrogens in blood. We used to never see that before. It used to be a total estrogen.
So you're saying the blood is
Absolutely.
blood labs are
Still
more
have
sensitive now than the saliva has been in the past?
It used to be that the blood was lagging behind. Now we can gain a lot of information from blood that we never used to be able to. So I always start with blood. Just write a prescription, go to LabCorp. I have yet to have anybody come in and say that they didn't pay for it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's usually pretty reasonable. Any other questions? I do want to say too that Meg talked a lot about supplements, and that's something that we work a lot with here. If you've paid attention to the news, a lot of the things you buy off the shelf, you know, over the counter, are not they're not regulated by the federal government, so you do not necessarily, you cannot say for sure what's in them. Sometimes there's nothing in them. Sometimes there's things in them that they're not listing. If you're taking, for instance, something like a Centrum vitamin, there's actually antifreeze in them as a preservative. It's under another name, but there's a lot of bad things in there. They don't work. They're very tightly tableted. That's one form that you really want to stay away from. Your stomach isn't designed to break down very tightly tableted things, and sometimes they even have vinyl coating on them, which your stomach definitely cannot break down. So you want to make sure if you are going to go that route that you get a very high quality supplement. Usually the companies we buy from, there's a few that are not this way, but for the most part, the supplements that we get, you get through doctors. And those are the ones that they go by their own quality standards. There's quality standards in the industry. And if you think about what a vitamin is, it's either going to have a mineral in it or it's going to have some kind of plant material. So you want to know what's the source of that, where was it grown, who grew it, are there pesticides in there, did they use the right part of the plant? You can buy Echinacea, if it's not the right part of the plant, that's not the potent part. So some plants they use the flowers, some plants it's the stems, some plants it's the leaves, some plants it's the roots. So you want to make sure, they can still call it Echinacea, but if they're not using the right part of the plant, you're not going to get the benefit. So there's things to learn. We're always here to teach them. We're always here for you. We hope you'll come back. We appreciate you coming tonight. And thanks for your kind attention. It's amazing you sat this long. I hope that it was worth your time. Thank you.